Well, hi everyone. I'm Teddy Abrams, and I'm the music director of the Britt Festival Orchestra.
And I'm Caroline Shaw. I'm a composer, musician, and writing a big piece for this summer at the Britt Festival.
And we're sitting here at the Britt venue early here in this spring day, and we're surrounded by the woodlands,
Yep.
which will be the actual stage and concert hall for this summer's project, which I am so excited about. This is many years in the making, and to be here with you, such an incredible composer and musician and thinker, and here we are in the process of dreaming up this project.
I'm really excited to be here too. We've been talking about it for a long time, and this week is kind of my deep focus, deep creative week to make this piece, to kind of re-experience the trails, kind of really thinking about, as you said, kind of what a stage means and what it means to make music in a different place like that.
Well, the interesting thing about this project is that we have been talking about it for a long time, and it's evolved from the orchestras or the Crater Lake thing that we did. We took the whole orchestra, all these musicians up to Crater Lake, and we realized this connection between music and nature is something we wanted to explore because we are quite literally within the natural environment, even at our normal stage and venue. And when it became possible to work with you on a next version of what that connection looks like and to do it here, of course, that was totally amazing that we jumped at the chance. But the crazy thing is right now, given the state of the world, the idea of a stage and a performance is totally transformed. I mean, everybody's found new stages to begin with. So it does feel like this project, even though it wasn't conceived for COVID, has a very special kind of resonance in a moment like this.
Yeah, it's unusual to think about it like that.
It's just weird. So the whole idea, well, you want to tell us kind of like what you're envisioning for it, because this is, for somebody that's never heard about this project at all, it's a pretty radical departure from what they're used to at the Britt Orchestra.
Sort of our usual questions about, what am I going to experience in this concert? Where do I go? How do I get there?
Exactly.
All those questions kind of come up. I think when you arrive, you'll start at the trailhead. We have kind of a map of different areas where musicians will be. So you can choose to know exactly where that is or not. I really like the idea of walking along the trails and turning a corner and coming upon a clarinetist, which may or may not be Teddy Abrams, or a trumpet player, or a solo cellist, or a trio of singers, or a string quartet, playing a fragment of music that is actually part of a larger piece, which ultimately will exist on the stage in the pavilion. For me, I'm really curious about the relationship of music and musicians, live musicians, to the woodlands, to this space, and the relationship of music to nature, and also the relationship of the pavilion to the woodlands, and thinking about how we experience music both as musicians and as listeners.
Well, and it's really interesting to consider music in a place like this where there's no amplification. We're doing this in the most clean way and integrated way possible. I mean, the whole idea is to as you said, place these musicians in juxtaposition and relationship to nature, not to superimpose something that's separately conceived. So how are you going about that? Because we're here right now, and is this your third trip out to Oregon now? Mm-hmm. So what is your process like as you're figuring out how to create the music?
Well, it's a mix of the sort of dreams and the logistics. So one of the things that I think about is shade, and literally where is the sun at different times of day. Will the musicians be covered? Is it a sort of safe place to stand and play? And then another logistic is, can they hear each other? And oftentimes they can't hear each other, and that's also okay. But certain places you'll be able to coordinate with another musician, maybe 100 feet away, or 200 or 300 feet away. And then there's the really fun part is thinking about the sound and the relationship of chords and harmonies to each other, thinking about melodies, thinking about themes, something that you might hear in the beginning. How does it develop once you hear it, 15 minutes later, walking around the corner with a different instrument? How do we remember melodies? How do things fit together when you can't exactly control when they're happening together. So really thinking about sculpture and mobiles and things that pivot around but aren't exactly fixed. And then taking all of those parts of the piece and putting them together as something that you can experience like a more traditional concert piece linearly on the stage.
And this is something I find so fascinating about it that I didn't originally know you were going in that direction, which I love, that it is this experience where you have a fully conceived, almost like a puzzle that's done, that you can experience on the stage, which is the last stop on of the trail system, the literal Britt stage, because our stage is basically connected to the trails themselves. But then all the puzzle pieces you'll discover along the way. So it's almost like you're going to get pieces of this jigsaw puzzle, but only at the end will you see them all come together. Is that sort of how you're conceiving
right
it?
Now, that is sort of the framework that I have.
It's amazing.
How strict that puzzle will be when it's on the stage, I'm not quite sure. I do still like the idea of something that is still pivoting and moving and being a little bit different every time, even on the stage. But it will be more coming together.
So are you, when you're out there on the trails, because you've been out in the mornings exploring and in the evenings, because those are the two performance times, are you already hearing the specific note choices and things like that, or are you just kind of, absorbing the surroundings?
It's a bit of both. I mean, music is it's always there all the time.
Yeah.
I'm right now kind of interested in making sure that I'm actually really connected to the specifics of the place, like the madrone trees and the bark, and thinking, is there a way to make music that is authentically connected to this material, to what you see and to what you hear and to what you experience on the trails. But I also think a lot about, I love harmony. I love the engineering of harmonies, thinking about modes, things that fit together, things that are interesting when they're juxtaposed, contrasts, dissonance, consonance. But really the question is, what would I want to hear walking through these trails, and what is the gift that I can make for people who come? Like what is the gift that I want to cook for people in this place? Which
is such a, I think a really special way to think of it. We talked about this yesterday, you're not saying, here is my thing that I want to put in there. You're actually asking, what could you give to people as they experience this? Not creating a monument, so to speak, but actually, developing an experience naturally. And I guess that's another question. when you're in a natural setting like this, there is already a certain perfection and beauty.
Yes, that is the hardest question.
But on the other hand, I mean, we've always found, the species has always found deep connections between spirituality and ritual and art and nature. So it's not like creating in the natural setting is as a foreign experience to human beings. So but how are you dealing with that?
It's funny. That's what I thought yesterday morning when I was walking through. It's like, this is perfect right now with no other sound, no music. But I think, as humans, we love to make new things, new experiences, games, meals, and I think this will be a unique and singular experience in the trails in the summer of 2021. And I'm excited about it.
Oh yeah. Well, here's a question about your style, because I think a lot of people, they may come to an experience like this, not necessarily because of a connection with the orchestra. Some are going to be fans of the orchestra, but many people might just see this is really cool to hear music in the forest. So they might not be totally familiar with a lot of living composers, and obviously there's no way to sum up what living composers sound like these days, but you have a unique and distinctive style, and I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about how you would describe that, or how you've come to the Caroline Shaw sound, which is something,
Is it a thing?
There's an absolute thing. When I hear your music, I go, that sounds like Caroline Shaw, which is a hard thing to do after hundreds of years of other people saying this sounds like Beethoven and that sounds like Bach.
That's nice to think about. You know, I think composers are the worst people to ask about, like, how would you describe your music? Because we're like,
Because it is hard to describe in words.
it's hard to describe in words, and you're also so close to it. I think it's, you know, it's hard. You don't have a very good perspective on what it is. Yeah. So I have no idea what my sound is, but I can tell you the things that I love very deeply, which are older harmonies. I love a lot of older music, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, but I've always been interested in taking this thing that I love so deeply in my heart and that moves me, but what if it did something different? What if the harmony, instead of going here, it went over there, or the texture was slightly different? And then starting from that place and kind of building something new that still feels the way that I want to feel.
But your style does feel like it connects lots of different time periods together. That's one of the things I've always been drawn to, that you're referencing multiple generations of music. That you when you hear it, there does sometimes feel like this connection to something almost antique or folk based, but then there are sounds that could never have been conceived 100 years ago. They're things that only a living composer might dream up, and I feel like that dynamic is something that's you know, incredibly appealing, because it's there's an effervescence to it. It's, you know, it sounds like music critic language, but it is hard to describe it. But on the other hand, you know, I think it is you just creating something like a menu or like a dish for people to experience on this. So it's almost like describing the food in words to get them to to buy it. Yeah. This is kind of an unusual project, right? This is not your everyday kind of commission.
No, I've never done anything like this before.
Did you hesitate when we originally talked with you about it? Did this seem like it was, you know, too out there or wacky, or was this something you just said absolutely?
I mean, there were sort of two things in my head. One is like, absolutely, yes, I definitely want to do this, and the other part is, I've never done this before. Can I do what I want to imagine in my head? And I mean, I'm so grateful to you and to everybody at the Britt Festival for just being so supportive and talking through this. I mean, this idea, which came from you and from the festival and from the Growing Out of the Crater Lake project, is so beautiful and so brilliant, and I feel lucky to get to be a part of it.
Well, we're so excited.